What is going on, PrizePicks family, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, it's gonna be a good one. I got our very first interview with Mr. CJ Curry, none other than arguably the top content creator in this space right now. Arguably, I mean, you're blowing up, man. Like I've been a big fan of your videos. I remember our initial conversation on Twitter where you were still doing written DFS strategy and stuff, and now you were talking about taking it to an audio visual component, and you've taken to YouTube, and YouTube has taken to you. So go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, man. Tell us like who you are, how you started this, and what made you want to, create content in this space.
Yeah. As you mentioned, my name's CJ, and I was in the IT industry for probably about 10 to 12 years, and kind of was at my last job and just started to reach that point where I felt like that meaning, that fulfillment wasn't there for me. I mean, I was good at it. People liked me. They enjoyed working with me and stuff like that. But for me, it just became kind of a mundane thing, same old routine. And so I was like, man, I tried to find different ways throughout that organization to kind of get into more of the content creation space. Started off with like, man, maybe I want to be like more like a UX designer for like this in-house app that they were designing. And then I was like, well, that didn't really take off. Let me see if like maybe the marketing team could use somebody who's interested in like doing graphic design, doing graphics and videos and stuff like that. I explored that. I just knocked on every door and basically none of them really opened for me. And then I was like, you know what? I got to take things back into my own hands. And so I took the leap of faith and decided to leave my job, the security, the comfort of a good paying job, and sold my house. And me and my wife, we paid off a little bit of debt that we had. And we decided, we're going to move into something smaller. Well, that turned into we can't find anything right now. So her parents were luckily gracious enough to welcome us into their home. And that's kind of what you see blurred out in this background here. I've been doing my thing here, learning graphic design, learning video and video editing and writing, which came out of nowhere. I've always been a good writer, but never set out to be a writer. But turns out that I ended up being pretty good at it. So all these different elements, and just was like, well, I think what I'm trying to do here is be a content creator. So let me just start like really creating content. So I had some opportunities open up to write some articles for one of Gary Vaynerchuk's lifestyle brands, 1:37 p.m. and started off as like a daily fantasy sports, season-long fantasy football article. And we touched on like trading card market and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a three-headed monster article. And basically I did that for the entire NFL season. And then that kind of opened up some other little doors. And then I just reached out to PrizePicks one day and I was like, hey, I noticed that you guys are kind of new and you don't really have any content out there. And I'd like to like start creating some content around your single player daily fantasy sports game. And there wasn't an opportunity or a job offer right away or anything like that. I said, okay, well then let me just go and do my own thing. I'll show them what I'm capable of, what I can do, and what I can kind of create on my own. And so I started, like you said, by like writing some articles and stuff like that around PrizePicks, covering NFL action. And then I realized, coming around January 1st of this year, I said, you know what, I got to evolve. I got to continue to grow. And that's a big thing for me is growth. So I decided we're going to take the leap of faith. We're going to get on YouTube. I already had all the equipment. I had everything that I needed to know and everything that I needed to get started. And I was just finally like, man, I'm going to kick fear in the face. I've never done anything like this before, but I'm going to jump on it and start creating content around daily fantasy sports and around PrizePicks. And here we are, about 6-7 weeks into it. And had tremendous growth. We're on our way to 600 subscribers on the YouTube. We're on our way to 500 Discord members. So it's been tremendous outpouring of like just support from people in this community. So it's been a blessing, man.
Right. I can totally relate to like everything you're saying. I mean, once you take that leap of faith, it's always the hardest video to post is always the first one,
Yeah.
I remember you sending me the link to your first one. I was out at the time, I was driving, but I was really excited to get home, give it a like, because you have to support content creators who are taking this leap. It's a difficult thing to do, being on camera like this, giving your opinion, putting yourself out there. So
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of respect for anyone who's willing to take that leap of faith, especially coming from a good job that you had, being willing to sell your house, moving with your in-laws, all that kind of stuff. It's not easy, especially
No.
during the pandemic. Was that decision pandemic driven? Was it because of the coronavirus that kind of spurred you into doing this, or were you already having these thoughts?
No, I mean, honestly, this happened back in June of 2019. That's the last time I stepped foot in an office and that I was an employee for somebody else. And, I just been kind of scrapping along the way. I started an Amazon FBA business selling products on Amazon, used books. I shout out to Reezy Resells. I mean, he put me on how to like flip stuff on Amazon and start an Amazon store. A lot of Gary V content. Like I said, he kind of was the one who led me to that point where it was like, all right, you got to the end of the ledge here. Now it's time for you to jump off and just do it. Like, he makes a good point of like, you could always get another, what he calls a BS job. And IT, it's not, a BS world. It's actually like really good paying and everything. But I was like, if this doesn't work out, I could always go back to that. So that was my mindset, and luckily, thankfully, things have slowly started to develop for me and doors are starting to open. And we built a fantastic community around something that I love, which is sports, which I think is a fantastic during times like these. It's a way to bring people together, unify people, and we've been able to build a really cool rock star community around DFS and sports. So
Right, and we certainly appreciate the community that you built, and the traffic that you've been driving. I mean, it's incredible what one person can do, especially when you set your mind to it, and you've obviously put in the work. What was your start in fantasy? Were you playing daily fantasy earlier, or were you playing single or season long fantasy? Like, what made you want to jump into the daily fantasy sports content space?
well, it all started when I was about 13 years old,
Okay.
a long time ago. I started playing, fantasy football, honestly. So I've been in the fantasy football for well over 20 years. And that was back before you had all these websites doing fantasy football stats and stuff. We had to wait until the newspaper came out on Monday to record the stats and figure out who actually won the fantasy football games for that week. So it sounds like a long time ago. I mean, I'm only like 35, so been at this for like 22 years, but that's where kind of fantasy sports, where I got my start in fantasy sports. And then obviously things evolved and, continued to play fantasy football more online. And then, you had some of the big DFS sites come about. And now I'm really excited about where things are headed with the whole, you know, sports betting and DFS scene and stuff like that with single player daily fantasy sports. I really think that it's a game changer. I think it has made a market that is somewhat challenging to get into, like DFS with some of these salary cap based DFS games. I think it's made it really, really easy and really simple for almost anybody to be able to pick it up and get going with it. So I'm excited about the future for it. And I think we're just in the infancy of DFS, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think just cementing your space in an industry that's about to boom. They say a rising tide raises all boats. So it's just like the fact that you're establishing yourself in this space as such an early part of it, especially the single player DFS thing. I think that's a very smart move on your behalf to kind of specialize in this, because there isn't a ton of content for daily fantasy sports, but what content there is primarily for those salary cap based sites like DraftKings, FanDuel, etc. And so kind of finding this niche that is bound to grow because of how like well it meshes with sports betting, and with sports betting becoming legalized across the country, it seems like you really found like a great niche for yourself. And so speaking of the future, like what is the future for Out of Bounds DFS? Do you want to continue to create a community and create content, or do you have other places that you want to take this, like different types of content, etc.? I'll let you speak on that.
yeah, I mean, so far I'm really impressed. It's grown and become something a lot more than I thought it would in such a short period of time, to be honest. When I got on YouTube for the very first time, I thought, hey, if 10 people watch this, then it'll be a blessing. But here we are, we're over, like I said, 560 or 70 subscribers in like 6 or 7 weeks. And then the views are out of this world. Like over 2,800 hours of my content has been viewed so far. So continuing to grow that and becoming like a YouTube partner would be really cool. Of course, you have to have a certain amount of subscribers and watch hours to hit those goals. So that's a big goal of mine. And then, as far as the community, the Discord community, we're well over 400 members. I want to continue to grow that. A lot of those members have become like premium members, which basically is just me going further than I can in a 30 to 40-minute YouTube video for those people that are like diehard PrizePicks fans. So I dig in, even further on stats and the best single player prop plays. I love the new single players or single stat plays rather on PrizePicks. So like your assists, your rebounds, your real life points. That's been a really cool way to kind of mesh what's happening in DFS and sports betting. I think kind of brings both of those together, and just continue to grow, man, and keep the momentum going on what we've started. So shout out to the community.
For sure, man. Definitely agreed. I mean, that single stat DFS that you mentioned is just so fun. Like I live with my folks, and I got my mom on it for the Super Bowl because she's she watches sports. She's a fan, but I had her place a couple single stat entries just using like Darren Williams unders and Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce overs, etc. And she had the time of her life watching the Super Bowl. And that's what I've been expressing to friends of mine, that when you invest in like when you I suppose the best way to put it is like watching sports is fun, but watching sports with action just changes sports. And so
for sure.
And so building a community where you all can watch sports like with the action together is it's incredible, man. So it's like I can relate to what you're saying with the YouTube partnership stuff as well. I mean, when I started Locks, which is how I even got this job at PrizePicks, we started Locks with like this idea of just creating visual content for people, and we had the same mentality. If 10 people view this, that would be amazing. And I think the first video we put out got like 400 views, and then you realize that there's like a huge market here, and that the people like develop this sort of like cult like following. Not, I don't want to use cult like, but this is rabid following of people
right.
who love your content, love the effort that you're putting in to create this, and it's just awesome to see, man. So speaking of your community, have you found like that members in your community or some of the more outspoken people there, do they prefer certain sports? I know right now it's kind of like a low period in the DFS space with just sort of basketball, hockey going. Obviously, there's a lot of MMA, PGA, tennis, stuff like that, but there's no football, baseball hasn't started yet. So it is kind of like that low sport. But have you found like a community preference or something?
Well, I would definitely say that, by far NBA is the most popular, sport that most of the players, most of the members in our community are enjoying right now. Now, something that I was never really into, but they're starting to kind of like open my eyes to it, is the whole esports scene. So like CSGO, we got a lot of passionate CSGO fans in there. League of Legends, I mean, there's people that follow that stuff like die hard in there, and it's starting to kind of like rub off on me a little bit, get me interested in it. I've always been a gamer, but as far as like CSGO and League of Legends and like keeping up with the esports scene and stuff, it's something that admittedly I have lacked on. But having people in your community that have different interests and come from different backgrounds and are into different sports and stuff has been eye-opening, and it kind of like starts getting you paying attention to some things that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have. And like another one is highlight. Like highlight out of nowhere is like blowing up in our Discord community right now. Like nobody really talks highlight outside of the Discord, but you go in there and it's like, what's the highlight plays for today? So I mean, highlight, esports, college basketball, NBA, man, you name it. Like we're into really everything. Everybody's playing everything in their tennis. So
that's awesome. That is the best part of communities, is that give and take aspect of it, because you find that communities where one person just sort of giving all and everyone else is sort of taking, those communities tend not to succeed as much as ones where the participants actively participate, if I should say.
Yeah.
So I think you've done a great job with that as well. Speaking of highlight, I was actually at a poker game. I was playing poker like a week ago, and there was a professional ex-professional highlight player there. So I was having a whole conversation with him about the sport, because it's pretty rare that you meet someone like that.
Yeah, I remember growing up in Florida, like there was, I was a kid, that it was big down here, highlight or whatever. We actually had a place not too far here around Tampa where you could go and I guess play highlight, or where they played highlight. But I guess I'm gonna have to start paying more attention to highlight.
It's a cool sport, man. I spent a couple hours just watching highlights of it. I mean, it was pretty sweet. Like it's so unique looking, and it's so
Yeah.
confusing that it's like, but it's definitely an interesting watch. It's got kind of like a squash racquetball kind of vibe to it with, it's awesome. I highly recommend anyone watching this to watch some highlight videos and get some highlight entries in on PrizePicks.
For sure.
Speaking of esports though, I can relate to that as well. I think I started getting into CS:GO during the pandemic months when CS:GO and Fight Island, UFC were like the only things really going on. There was Korean baseball,
iRacing.
iRacing, exactly. But that was a mess. I remember some crazy stuff happened there. But yeah, that's pretty much when I was getting into CS:GO and I was watching it on Twitch, and I found like I've never been good at shooter games. Like I've always been good at FIFA, 2K, Madden, and I've been trash at like Call of Duty, Halo, those kind of games. And so I know I'd be awful at CS:GO, but watching it is like watching people who are good at it is pretty entertaining, pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
We actually have a lot more coming in our esports space as well. We have Call of Duty, Valorant, and Rocket League all debuting in March. Um,
Oh,
right, so we'll have some pretty cool videos coming out on this YouTube channel. Kind of getting people hyped for that. But we've seen the interest that your community has shown in esports, and obviously we want to reciprocate that by giving you guys a good product to play. So we got some really smart guys behind here working like really hard to make this product as good as possible for you, your community, and the rest of the PrizePicks fan base.
well, we're looking forward to it, man. We love the diverse selection of different sports that are offered on PrizePicks, and it's cool that unlike some other sites, you can't really like select the players you want to pick and like make those overs or unders on. PrizePicks kind of gives you that freedom to really select whoever you want to go after, whoever you feel strongly about, whether it be an over, whether it be an under, and lock them into your lineups. And I like the fact that you can mix and match across sports too. If there's a couple of plays you're really feeling on NBA, you can mix them with CS:GO or mix it with highlight or whatever your preferred sport is. So that's pretty dope.
Right, the opportunities are endless. You can just create your perfect entry. You don't have to be limited to like a certain sport, a certain game. You can just
Yeah.
let it fly. You can go with single stat DFS and partner that with fantasy sports and create like some pretty crazy entries. We've seen some guys do some unique stuff over here and with great success as well.
Oh yeah.
So are you sweating anything tonight? I know NBA starts soon, so I'm gonna let you go here shortly. But what are you sweating?
NBA for sure, man. I'm really paying attention to this Chicago Bulls Houston Rockets game. It's looking like it's setting up to be one of the more high scoring, close spread type games. Probably one that's it's going to have a lot of guard play, less about the big men, more about run and gun type of basketball games. So those are the kind of games that are fun for me to watch. But that's probably the big one that I have maybe the most interest in or exposure to. So.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, those are fun games. Definitely makes sweating overs a lot more fun when you got these high paced teams that are sort of just letting it fly. I think
Mm-hmm.
that game, I get that vibe from the Lakers Wizards game, the Portland Phoenix game. We could
Oh yeah.
see some cool stuff happen there for sure tonight.
Yeah, you got Beal and Westbrook. Westbrook going back to LA. I mean, he's always looking to probably ball out when he's, in LA, former UCLA guy. So you got LeBron on the other side without AD, unfortunately, but he's been elevating his game, playing better lately. So it'll be a fun one too.
Who you got for MVP this season? You got any opinion on that so far? It's a tight race, man. Like,
so far,
yeah,
Joel Embiid for me.
I like it.
Embiid, man.
Yeah, I think that's fair with how the 76ers are sitting in the conference and the way they look with him versus without him is just like pretty stark contrast.
The game he had the other night was just bonkers. I think he put almost like 100 PrizePicks points up or something. It was like 90 something PrizePicks points. Crazy.
The 50 burger, the one where you got, that one.
Yeah.
That one.
He had like 90 something like total fantasy points. It was nuts.
Yeah, that was insane. I know Ben Simmons was out for that game, correct?
I think that might have been the one where Ben was out and it was just like Embiid and Tobias Harris basically. So yeah, he went off, man.
I was looking at some Seth Curry props and looking to take some overs there, and I think he ended with like 9 points and 4 rebounds. So I was like, all right, I'm off Seth Curry now. I'm off this Seth Curry train.
Yeah, he's kind of like one of them guys where if the shot's falling and he's making his shots, then he's going to put up a big game for you. But kind of a scoring dependent type of player doesn't really get those ancillary stats. So
yeah, that stuff's crucial, especially with points and with steals and blocks being 3 points apiece. Like you want your guys to be able to contribute like a Ben Simmons or like a Matisse Thybulle, a guy who's going to get you those kind of blocks and steals like at a high clip. But
That's why I like going for those big guys who are getting those rebounds, those easy putbacks, those block shots. Their field goal percentages are typically way higher when they are attempting shots. Their high percentage attempts around the basket and stuff. So those are the type of guys I like to target typically in PrizePicks format. So
I love it, man. I love hearing about all types of different strategies that go into it. I've made a few of my fair share of strategy, or I made my fair share of strategy videos for NBA and NFL and stuff. But hearing what you have to say, as well as what your community has to say, is also very interesting. I'll definitely incorporate that in future videos going forward as well. But man, this was awesome. I really want to thank you for coming on. I'm so happy that our first interview on this channel could be with you, someone who I really respect. I think you're doing a lot of awesome stuff in this space, and I'm super excited to see where you take it, where you take Out of Bounds DFS, and I think there's a lot more PrizePicks X CJ Curry content coming in the future. So
let's do it.
Yeah, so thank you, man, and good luck with your entries tonight.
I appreciate you, brother.
All right, have a good one, man.
You too.